So, good afternoon once again. So now we will have our next session, and we are really delighted to have with us Dr. Sucheta Kurundkar, Principal Scientist. Madam is a well-known figure in the field of bioethics. Currently, Madam is a Principal Scientist at Translational Health Science and Technology Institute. So welcome, Madam. Now this stage is yours.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, Madam.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Shombu Shamajdar and the entire team for inviting me. I hope my screen is visible. Is my screen visible?
Yes, Madam. Please make it full screen. Yeah, now it's full screen.
Yeah, thank you so much. From 1st January, actually, I have joined KAHIR, Kale Academy of Higher Education and Research, and has no more in DBT as on date. So I would like to thank Dr. Shombu Shamajdar and the entire team for inviting me. I can see Nandini ma'am is also there. And in fact, this is my first session. I have spoken in maybe more than 250 GCP programs, but this is my first time I'm speaking about roles and responsibility of investigator. And I will speak from the perspective of NABH assessor or Sitkar FERCAP surveyor, as well as I'm a GCP auditor. So I also wanted to tell that whatever I am speaking is my personal opinion, and it must not be misconstrued as an endorsement by any organization that I represent. So I have been a clinical trial participant twice in my life, and I would love to become thrice. And I have seen investigator, and I have also seen from the other part of the table. This is an example of how things can go wrong if one of them makes a mistake. This is an example of a traffic jam, which always you will find that only one car or one truck broke down. So sirf ek banda kafi hai to make a mess of it. In 2012, when I joined Department of Biotechnology, that was a time when the clinical trial was undergoing a huge transformation, and I had the opportunity to work with all the people for national strengthening for GCP as well as ICMR National Ethical Guidelines and NDCT rules, which came thereafter. I realized that what it matters is the quality. And we may have many investigators, but if you don't have a good investigator, just like the tire will not be able to work together. So what I learned is that the investigator is the one who is the busiest, and he doesn't have time. So he doesn't learn lessons at right time. And the problem happens when they go through the trial and they are the investigators and they are not learning, they are making those mistakes, actually has a serious repercussion on the trial. So very, very important to know that. Let me tell you four stories which are very close to my heart. I'm cognizant about time. Once this is all my experience, real experience, but I will change the name and the place for the matter of I'll just as a disclaimer I give for the privacy reason. Once I was auditing a site and it was an oncology trial and the IP had never reached there. And at the day of audit, they were in very troublesome mode, and they found that IP in some other country, in some other place. So that means the IP, the investigational product, which is supposed to be not being dispensed to a patient because it's not being licensed to sell, is now being illegally or smuggled to other country. Another story is that when I was doing an assessment, this was an accreditation related assessment, and I was going to an area which was not the purview of my going there. Just because it was a pre-lunch, post-lunch time, I was loitering around and I found a room locked. Because as curious as an auditors are, I just wanted to open the door. After a lot of resistance, the door was opened and there were different boxes, and all the boxes has all those documents that were the real documents. And the documents which we are reviewing for the accreditations or assessments was actually a concocted documents. These stories tell me that at PI's end, there are a lot of ghapla or jugaad that happens, and it's very important that PI knows it. There are a lot of chances when PI makes mistake, and it is very important that they know that mistake can be made by anybody. It is that they should be aware and they should be able to repair those mistakes. Because if any of the PI or any of the investigator makes a mistake, it will represent all the investigators across India. And that was the serious issues why we had all those regulations being made stringent. An investigator was asked to be enrolled only in 3 trials. There was a time where it was very strict things, and slowly it loosened up, because if you do anything, the nation wants to know. It is very important for all of us to remember this, is that RSW, that is the right, safety, and well-being of all study participants. I hate to use the word subject. And the data that we generate are following those alquaci, and these are the heart or left and right hand of GCP. The problem which happens to investigator is that investigator is very enthusiastic, and they ask for they are very enthusiastic when they make sponsor, and they say, oh, we have 500 patients for a trial, and the sponsor recruits him or her as a principal investigator. But when there is an inclusion exclusion criteria, that 500 becomes 5 or maybe lesser. I will request all investigator and sponsors to do due diligence, just not become like the girl in US who married a boy from Bihar in a place called Jhumri Talaiya. Talaiya means pool, and the boy said, I have a pool. The boy was right. He was not telling lies, but the girl imagined or assumed that it was a swimming pool. It's very important also, investigators, when they sign all the documents, write on the documents, are very careful about their handwriting. If they cannot write good handwriting, they can buy a cursive writing. It is very important that the investigator reads the protocol. Many times during assessment, when we ask questions to the investigators, they actually call the CRO or the sponsor to answer the question, because like a husband, they know that making rice is 1 glass of rice and 3 glasses of water. They have not read the protocol. They have not read the investigator brochure, which is actually meant for them. This is just like the protocol is just like the face mask. They can use it in the way they want, because eyes are also a part of face and mouth is also a part of face, so they can put it anywhere. So protocols are also not followed. This is a big problem. Many times when I see during assessments, I find that people, that is investigators, follow the NDCT rules stringently. Just like during COVID time, we had this ek haath ki duri, and people used to follow this ek haath ki duri. You see that they're not sitting in the pink cross mark, but they're cuddling together otherwise, so it's very dangerous. Many times I have seen PIs following other PIs, like pushing this truck, and they don't plan it properly. So it's very important that they know that failing to plan is planning to fail. This results in investigators of different quality, the quality we want versus the quality we get to see. The problem is that we don't recruit competent personnel. Usually the investigator that we select are very good clinicians, very good surgeons, but they have not been handheld and not been trained to become a good investigator. That also requires some kind of allocation of time and energy towards it. In just investigator is a very responsible leader, a leader who knows that how to get things done and not fill up the bucket like this. There is a lot of problems when investigators are asked to follow SOPs, especially the protocol. And just like this boy who has written, do not write on the wall, he has written, okay, sir. That means while following it also is not following, and that becomes very difficult. So the crux that I found is training. You need to constantly and continuously train investigators and handhold them. And even after training, you will find that they behave from 1st January to 4th January. Within 4th January, the investigator goes into the same sleep mode, which the team, especially the monitor and the sponsor, sometimes the institution has taken a lot of efforts to train them. I see a lot of problems in many of the investigators who are even trained. They know what is wrong. They also know what is right. But the problem is when you audit them during assessment, they say, Meri Merzi, and that makes it very difficult for things to do. They also borrow SOP from other centers, whether it is multicentric trials or different places, and they forget that other centers' SOP is not their SOP. They fail to understand that a simple job of stepping the Lakshman Rekha also leads to Ramayana, and that is the best example of non-compliance. When I review through the documents which investigator has written themselves, I sometimes feel amused and I feel sometimes sorry, because they have not read what they have written and they have signed. Many times they sign without date. Any sign in clinical trial is SNDT. SNDT is sign, name, date, and signature. Without that, it is not valid. The biggest problem of investigator is assume and not ensuring. It's very important not to assume. Clinical trial is a very serious business, and it is matter of totality of responsibility and lot of accountability. You should move to assure, not assume. The problem again is that when they write a protocol, the protocol has been amended, so SOP has to be amended, and the SOP doesn't get amended. The SOP amended also has to have a training. So protocol amended training, SOP amended training, they never have the time and always have these various reasons of not being able to understand. And the problem happens when there are checks and balances, mainly monitoring and auditing, and it's very difficult sometimes to know what is faculty. So my request to all investigators is that please be very careful and ask yourself, do you believe you read? You got an investigator brochure, you got a protocol, you need to read it, you need to find the gaps, you need to address them much away before you are actually have embarked upon the study. You should do that, because sometimes whatever written is also not very correct, because यूक्रेन से मारे गए छात्र से प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने बात की. I do not know what technology we have that people who have died also our prime minister can speak. So it should be very, very careful. Also for the investigators, it's very important that they understand, do you believe what you see? Sometimes you have clinical trial team members, CRAs, CRCs, and whenever you work with CRCs, you trust them, and CRCs of course are very trustworthy, but you have to do an oversight. Otherwise, Kailash Hospital will look like Lash Hospital. Also very careful about what you're shown, because sometimes you're shown about a lot of things by your clinical research team members or sponsors, but that are not real. Both tiger and cat belongs to the same family, but they aren't the same. It's also very important to understand what you hear in the investigators meeting, what you hear in the ethics committees. These are very important, and be careful of what you hear. The most important is compliance, is when you hear and you follow, and that has to be as per the protocol, as per the GCP, as per the regulatory requirement, as per the ethical requirement, which you drill down and design your own SOP. Many times I've seen the investigator, when they submit documents, they forget many things, maybe by negligence, or maybe just common sense is not so common among common people. At any given time, for investigator, he or she is the first and the last contact of patient. The patient or the participant knows only investigators and not any one of them. So it's sacrosanct in nature and non-negotiable to and ensure that the rights, safety, and well-being, when I say well-being, it's a holistic well-being of all study participants, are well protected. The weakest link or kamzor kadi is in informed consent process and documentation, which are very poor by investigators. I will not say all the investigators, but I'll definitely say majority of the investigators. They are very poor in writing, and they do not have time for informed consent. Today in the time of digitalization, it is very important that we digitalize. You have signed something, you immediately scan it. Even God is very advanced, and God also is getting digitalized. The crux is that when you work, immediately you document. It is very important. If you work now and document later, it is surely going to have a lot of non-compliances. If I read an Oxford dictionary, it tells you that investigator is the one who investigates. If I read the ICH E6R3 guideline, which is recently launched on 6 January 2025, it says about investigators' entire definition. It also tells about principal investigator when you have a team of members. It also tells you sub-investigators. Who are sub-investigators? Maybe your residents, maybe your associates, maybe the research fellow. It also gives a definition of coordinating investigator. Then if you're a multicentric trial, one person can be a coordinating investigator. It also gives a definition of sponsor investigators. Many times investigator-initiated research, it can be an academic trial, it can be a regulatory trial. The investigator can be a sponsor investigator. In just an investigator is like Ma Durga, or the goddesses, which has 10 hands and has lot of responsibility. As per R3, there are around 13 responsibilities, but n number of responsibilities are hidden within that. And the GCP has merged investigator with institutions in the R3, which makes it more important that the investigators remain attached to the institution. These are the 13 responsibilities which I will focus upon. And these are the key difference which ICH R2 has transformed to R3. In R3, you will find that the investigator responsibilities are very detailed, helping us to audit better. There is a lot of emphasis on training. The word training means the train has to move on. If the train stops, it goes to a locomotor shed. They've also emphasized on the qualification, the data integrity. There's a data governance, which now is a part of sponsor and investigators' responsibility. Of course, safety is always first, and how the investigators can be handheld or helped so that they can meet ethical and regulatory standards. These are the investigator responsibilities, which I will quickly go through. An investigator's responsibility, even after the trial has ended, has not ended, because the investigator is the one who remains in touch before, during, and after the trial. He or she can delegate his or her responsibilities. But remember, the role can be delegated, but not the responsibilities. You can tell that my sub-investigator will do, my co-investigator will do, but if something goes wrong with the co-investigator and coordinating investigator or anybody sub-investigator, the principal investigator or the investigator who has delegated is responsible. To qualification, if you know that we have a policy of E square T, he or she educationally qualified, has an experience of conducting a trial, has been trained on protocol, GCP, regulation, ethics, is able to understand that the research will demand time, and he is able to give time for patient care as well as research trials, and is not able to divert those either participants or his time attentions. Always remember that safety and efficacy, mainly the safety is paramount importance, and is aware about IP, and the responsibilities comes with IP. This is most important, that the protocol, GCP, is all can be merged together to form a standard operating procedure, and the standard operating procedure should be his or her own and not borrowed from others. Should allow monitoring and audit. Monitoring is quality control, audit is quality assurance, and inspection is always by regulatory authorities. The best place I see is the non-compliance is always delegation of responsibility. If time allows, I'll show you some examples of what I felt. These are some delegation log, which can give you an idea how you should write. These are some staff delegation log. I once was auditing and found that one staff was delegated, and that staff was on maternity leave. If somebody is on a maternity leave, you cannot delegate the person, because that person is already on the leave. You have to be very cognizant about this. The investigator also signs many agreement, bipartite, tripartite, mainly a part of tripartite, confidential agreement, financial agreement, independent indemnity agreements, and should be aware about the legal implications it puts on the responsibility of investigator. So if you're an investigator, if somebody aspires to be a good investigator, they should know that the life of Pi, the life of a principal investigator, is as struggling as the life of Pi in the film. They need to have a good team. They need to have some space, especially big problem in very heavily pressurized or highly pressurized tertiary cares or government hospitals. And the most crux is the time. They should be trained specifically on informed consent, IP administration, CRF filling up, how to ensure that the AE and SA reporting are strictly followed, inclusion and exclusion criteria. There are tons of stories of every audit that I have learned, but there were a lot of mistakes by experienced PIs. The medical care is the one which distinguishes an investigator from others. Whatever come, your patient and his or her health is of paramount importance. If something arises, you may decide to take out the patient out of the trial for safety reasons, and you have got all the right to do that. So at any given time, safety cannot be compromised. It is the investigator who also communicates with ethics committees, and it is so important that you understand the working of ethics committee and ethics committees. You're supporting each other for ensuring that the trials are conducted in most ethical manners. And if there are any mistakes, not to hide and discuss with the member secretary and chairperson, and ensure that your mistakes are being corrected through corrective and preventive action. The biggest problem that I face during audits with investigators is that they don't document. They only write what has happened. My request to all investigators is to write what has happened and also write what did not happen, because human memory is very short lived and you do not know what has happened 1 year ago exactly on a date. But if you write it and sign it with SNDT, you will be able to recall. Compliance with the protocol is the biggest problem monitors, auditors face. And when there is an assessment, assessors face. What is written, you don't follow. It's very important. Let me give you an example of a dialogue by a film, in a film where Salman Khan says, एक बार मैं बता देता हूँ तो उसके बाद मैं अपना भी नहीं सुनता हूँ. Such should be the protocol compliance. Once you have written, you have to follow. And if you don't want to follow, you need to do a protocol amendment and not have protocol deviations. I see a lot of protocol violations, and that has not been taken care by that. Investigation and product is the total and sole responsibility of the investigator. As you know, that investigational investigator. So how it is dispensed, what is the temperature, what is the log, how do you do pill count? There are a lot of issues. Sometimes when we do assessments and we found huge number of cases. If time allows, I can do some case study on that. And sometimes the temperature are not being correctly mentioned. I can see from the signature that always sign on one date. It's very easy for the assessors and auditors to catch hold of mistakes if you're writing all just before that. And this log also doesn't have a heading. You don't know which batch number, you don't know what is the protocol number. So blank things actually causes a lot of issues. Whenever you're doing randomization, blinding, unblinding, the investigator must be sure about what he or she is doing, notify the sponsor, and when required, to other stakeholders. When you have an enrollment log and you are blinding, it's very important that you talk interest of time. Informed consent to me is the kamzor kadi, or the weakest link, and a chain is as strong as its weakest link. If you are an investigator and you have not done the informed consent process and you have delegated that to somebody else, remember that if he or she makes a mistake, the entire responsibility falls on you. So if you're an investigator, I will request them to at least be involved during the informed consent process and understand that it is a process and not a one-time commitment of meeting the participant and taking his or her consent for the study. There are many elements of informed consent. Many of the people who are aware must be knowing that NDCT rules have written about it and the ICMR National Ethical Guidelines have written it. I'll again skip the case studies, records and reports. If you have documented and you are not able to prove, that means it was not done. So there's a formula called ALCOA-C, which is if your document, if you pick up any document and it is ALCOA-C, then that means the document is correct or record is correct. Was it accurate? Was it eligible? Was it written exactly when it happened? Was it the raw data? Because the data can be either raw or cooked, just like a carrot. A cooked carrot cannot be a raw. And then it is attributable who has worked it and whether it is complete. During assessment, we also do a test called 5W1H. When you pick up any record, you should be able to do who has done it, when was it done, why was it done, where it is, what it is, and the most important, how. If you're able to understand if the document or record passes ALCOA C plus and the 5W1H, the document is supposed to be good. The biggest problem is the documents that are seen after 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, they're not legible. It has vanished. We're very careful about it. And that's why we suggest that you use black ink or you use an ink which is written mentioned in your SOP, and always have signatures with name, date, and time. Progress reports, many people do not send us progress reports. Many people are not sure about what is safety reporting and how many stakeholders are responsible for safety reporting. There is a strict suggestions or guidelines mentioned in the statutory requirement as per the NDCT rules 2019 about what investigators should do when there is an SAE and how he or she should be responsible for this. I'll again skip the case study. There is many times there is a premature termination by the sponsor or ethics committee, or the investigator themselves may decide, and it's very important that you document it and ensure the participant is aware about it. The final report, very important. Many times when we ask during assessments, we never find the final report. This is the last 5 key areas of the responsibilities. Any protocol or a research plan is like Gita, Quran, Bible, Guru Granth Sahib. Whatever is written, we need to follow. The next important is informed consent. The third is the anything which is related with safety, whether it's AE, SA, SUSAR, whatever it is, you have to take it to cognizance that it is your prime responsibility. Record keeping and data handling is one of the biggest areas where I always see mistakes. Like I can see 2G in handling as a mistake, and IP accountability, because the PI is involved. PI is responsible for IP. You can see IP is the opposite is PI. So very important to remember. These are some of the findings I found when I do assessments are procedure related findings, staff selection related finding. If you don't take a qualified staff, and then you will have land into problems. So I always say that if you give peanuts, you will always get monkeys. So get people who are trained. Always remember how you sign bank check. The same way you should sign or work with your clinical trial documents. If you cannot give a correct check, the check will be dishonored. So similarly is your clinical trials documentation. I've seen many times that signatures are missing. The date and times are always universally missing. They also do not write what exactly happened. I can see it many times in the documents. I also see many times as oversight, lack of oversight of investigator. probably due to lack of time. So if you don't have time, my request is don't do trials. Just do something else, but don't do trials, because trial is a very serious business. And if you have done a trial and delegated that to somebody of your juniors and they have messed it up, then you are the ones who's responsible for messing it up. Source document, as the name it says, that the document you write first, the raw data is the source document. And if you do audit trail and find that that document never existed or the evidence is not there, like we have evidence-based medicine, these are also evidence-based. So for me, this is the last slide. Probably a best investigator is the one who is really interested, is ethical, is able to educate his or her time, is able to supervise the time, work on the progress on the problems, is able to open to discussion, monitoring, audits, never leave it to subordinates. And if you see, the time is bold, because that is the kamzor kadi, and is interested always in continual improvement, always understands source document, original document, very important, lives up to the standard of GCP, and is always keen on getting accreditation, by which he or she will earn reputation and recognition. Thank you so much for your time and attention. If time allows, I have 3 questions, but I totally leave it to the sponsors. Hi, am I audible?
Yes, madam. You can go ahead with the questions, madam, because we have the 3 minutes time, I think.
Oh, I have only 3, but I have case study also if time allows. I'll request all of you to put in the chat box. Although I cannot see the chat box, I'll request Dr. Shamansta to help me. If you can just put question number 1, what is the correct answer? You can write Q1 dash this. Which of the following is not a prime responsibility of investigator? To maintain IP log at the site, to ensure that safe and temperature secure delivery of IP is done to the site, distribution of the correct dose and the strength of IP to the study participants. I don't use the word subject. Returning back of the unused IP from the study participants. Which one is not a prime responsibility of an investigator? Dr. Shamastar, I will request you to help me. Which is the fastest finger first? Who is the first one to respond? And what is the correct answer they have said?
Yes, we are waiting for their answer.
Okay. So I hope they haven't slept, because it's a post-noon session and there is very strong tendency to doze off.
No, we are waiting for their answer. Please give your answer in the chat box so that we can get that.
That will ensure our attendance also.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So we do not have too much time. The correct answer is, still there is no takers. I think there are 2 takers.
One answer given by Dr. Anushmita Saha.
Okay, it's 4. Okay.
4,
Okay.
yeah.
So answer is
Dr. Surendra Kumar Sharma, 2.
Yes, the answer is 2. You know, it is the responsibility of the sponsor to ensure that safe and temperature secure delivery of IP is made from sponsor to the site. So it is a little tricky one, but the answer is 2. I'm happy. If you have attempted, that's enough. Nothing else matters. Question number 2, if you can please put the answer, you have to only write 2 dash true or 2 dash false. A senior clinical, maybe a professor level sub-investigator, holds more responsibility than a relatively junior, say assistant professor level principal investigator for any trial related to misconduct. The answer is true, answer is false. Any response, Dr. Shaumanchtar?
Yeah, not yet. We are waiting for their answer.
Okay, it's a very simple one. The answer is false. First of all, there's opposite. Yes, Dr. Shanhati Pal, thank you. Answer is false. Especially senior clinical professor level person is usually the principal investigator, and the junior, maybe assistant professor level, can be a sub investigator. So it's twisted. Even though the question is wrong, the problem is related to misconduct. And remember, if it is a misconduct, whatever be the designation, they are equally responsible. Equally responsible. Any trial related misconduct cannot be tolerated because of any of the designation. And the last question is 3rd question. I hope I'm able to shift. No, there are 2 questions only. I thought there's a 3rd question. Okay. Do we have time for the case study? It's 3 o'clock.
Can you please make one case study?
Okay. So this is a case study, and you can give the answer as yes, no, or something like that. There is a doctor called Dr. Jignesh Patel. The name and everything is changed, but the scenario is real. There's a person called Dr. Jignesh Patel who works in a super tech hospital in Fab Town. The Institutional Ethics Committee has approved a study with him as a principal investigator. Dr. Patel has now recruited a patient at his high care clinic for this trial. Is this a deviation? Yes or no? Is this a deviation or it is okay? Because he has already been approved as a PI. I can see some answers, but these are all earlier answers. I'm not sure which the answer has come. Okay.
Not yet come. Not yet come.
Okay.
Okay. So Jagdish Chandra Dhakan, Dr. telling yes. Dr. Shoposachi Nandi also telling yes. Yes.
Thank you. Absolutely correct. It is a deviation because when Dr. Jignesh was given an IAC approval where he was a PI for Supertech Hospital at Fab Town. But he has taken this approval and recruited a patient in his high care clinic. It's a serious misconduct. He must immediately do something. So what he should do as a remedy? Any ideas? If yes, why? If no, why? He may not do any remedy. And if you have to do any remedy, what action he or she should take? Any idea? Thinking? That's good. Let me tell you, this is a very, very common case which still happens in many of the areas where they are not trained. So first thing is that the PI has to be trained. He probably doesn't understand PI's responsibilities and roles, may not have met the IAC properly. If the IAC has approved a study with him as a PI at Supertech Hospital, Fab Town, he can only recruit patients at Supertech Hospital and not high care. The patient that is recruited, he has to immediately speak to the ethics committee and take immediate action as guided by the ethics committee. He also needs to undergo training on GCP, has to understand his or her responsibilities. Whoever is the sponsor must also train him so that he does not behave like that next time. Apart from that, there are a lot of things that Dr. Jignesh Patel should do. But for the time being, when he's the PI, he is responsible for every action as a responsible. Thank you so much for your time and attention for attending this session. Namaskar and Jai Hind from my end.
Thank you once again, madam, for this beautiful deliberation. We are really privileged to have you with us, madam. And it will be great if you have time, madam. I am requesting you to please stay during the panel discussion. It will be around from 5:30 p.m. So if possible, madam,
sure,
you can stay with us.
Sure. I'll join back at 5:30.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.